Monday Night Wars podcast.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Monday Night Wars. Joseph said I have a cadence that I do, so I tried to switch it up on you there for a second. It is January 27th, 1997, and we are live with WCW Nitro at the Veterans Memorial Auditorium in Des Moines, Iowa. With me, as always, is Joseph Ross. Joseph, how you doing, my friend?
I'm great. And if you heard that voice at the start of the episode and went, hey, that sounds familiar, it is. It's Jeff Steitzer who does the multiplayer voice for Halo. So if you ever heard, the double kill, that whole thing, that's Jeff Steitzer. So my brother got to meet him the other day and he recorded that for us. So that's going to be at the beginning of all of our episodes now because it's the coolest fucking thing in the world.
Big fan of the pod, Jeff is. Not really. But if he is,
you don't know that.
Yeah, maybe he listens. Maybe he knows. Or maybe he knows now.
Absolutely.
When checked it out and he's like, hell yeah, 90s wrestling. Who loves it? Jeff does. Anyways, let's get into it because we had a bit of drama. At Sold Out. And the drama was that it sucked. But you can listen to it for $2 a month because it's on our Patreon. But the big news is the Outsiders lost the titles to the Steiner brothers. And that's how we start tonight. We go straight to Eric Bischoff, Scott Hall, and Kevin Nash. And they're telling us some funny business went on last night. Nick Patrick got knocked out. Remember, this was the NWO's pay-per-view. And Nick Patrick was the ref for all the matches, but he got knocked out. And Randy Anderson came out, and he cheated. And you know how he cheated, Joseph?
By doing his job that he was not permitted to do?
Yes, he called the match correctly, and he cheated. And so Eric says, Randy, how did you even get in the building? You were not supposed to be there. And Randy says, well, I got a ticket from a promoter because he's a WCW guy. He just loves the show. And so he ran out. And Eric said, company policy about getting gifts. And Randy says he does. And then Eric says he violated company policy by accepting that gift. And Randy says, oh, but Eric, I had cancer. And Eric says, I don't give a shit about your cancer.
He does. He says, I don't care about your personal problems.
And he says, oh, I got a wife and kids. I don't care about your kids. You're fired. He fires Randy Anderson right there. And this is some good acting on Randy Anderson's part because, I felt bad. Like, this is fucked up what they're doing.
And Hall and Nash are just clowning him, which is great.
Yeah, they mock him about getting in the employment line and kind of all that stuff. And yeah, it's bad. It's not bad. It's bad as in it's good, right? Where it's like, I felt really bad for Randy Anderson. I thought this went well. In a point where I was like, that's not right. They shouldn't be doing this. I'm offended. I'm offended.
All of a sudden you're invested and you're like, how could they do that? Meanwhile, he's clearly employed, but yeah.
He's got a wife and kids and had cancer, Eric. Come on. I'm upset. But we're not done there. We're not done yet, right? Not done with it yet. Because then they call the Steiner brothers out. And they say, hey, Randy Anderson violated company policy being there last night. He should not have been reffing that match. Ergo, the match result is void. You lose the titles. They're going back to the Outsiders. And Rick Steiner throws the belt so hard against the cement, he breaks that shit. I thought this was great. What'd you think?
I loved every moment of this. I think this is when Eric Bischoff really plays the heel, he is phenomenal. You have to realize that the Eric Bischoff I grew up with was when he was the Raw general manager, and I fucking hated him because he was such a great heel. Now, in retrospect, seeing that when he really I don't want him leading NWO, but when he just gets to really just be a smarmy piece of shit, he's so fucking good at it. And there are some who would argue that is art imitating life. I'm not one of those personally. I think that, yes, he probably had his not great qualities, but I think he had a lot of good qualities. And I enjoyed this. I enjoyed the hell out of this. I gave this an A+. I thought it was a phenomenal start to Nitro.
It's great. And like I said, you might be surprised that the Steiners just so willingly gave up the belts, right? But Eric tells them they're in breach of contract. He reminds them that he's the highest ranking official in WCW, which is important because that's going to change. But I do feel like, I don't think it was scripted, right? But Rick throwing the belt on the ground so hard he actually breaks it, like pieces fly off of it.
Yeah.
I think sold that for me. That they're giving it up, but they're not really giving it up, not without a fight, right?
Right.
And that leads us into our first match because it's the Steiner brothers, the now titleless Steiner brothers versus the Faces of Fear. Tell me, Joseph.
Hall says that he got a hangnail. And so I'm sorry, let me restart that because I got confused because I was talking about Hall and Scott Steiner and they were both named Scott. So I confused myself. I'm not going to edit this. Sometimes we just make mistakes, folks. So Scott Hall says that Scott Steiner got a hangnail and stayed home for 6 months, which I thought is a very funny line. He also calls Rick Steiner the weak link. Man, that's pretty brutal. This is a fun and simple match. Scott wins with a belly-to-belly suplex. The commentary is good. The match itself was hard-hitting. It's what we expected from these two teams. I'm giving it a C+.
Yeah, we do have Tony and Larry back on the mics.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, so it's not an NWO commentary table. It is our WCW commentary table. So that was good. Yeah, I agree that there was a lot of Scots in here, and and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, right now we're talking about 3 Scots. You know what I mean?
And most importantly, yeah. Well, and then we go to a commercial. We come back. They're talking about what transpired earlier with the firing of Randy Anderson, with the Steiner brothers getting the titles taken away from them, and Larry and Tony, they don't think this is a great look for the organization. They said they aren't allowed to show any. I also like this part too. They go for a recap of last night, but told that they're not allowed to show any of the positive footage. Anything that's positive towards WCW has been banned, but they can show some still photos. So they show us a couple of match highlights that I'm not going to go into detail about because that's on the Patreon. But I did like that angle, right? That we're not allowed to show you any video from it because we've been banned from doing that because it shows WCW in a positive light. But here's some photos because it did not go completely as planned for the NWO last night.
Right. I mean, it's similar to what they did at Starrcade, right? When Piper won right after, like, you can't show anything. No, he didn't win. Hogan won.
And there you have it. After that, though, we got the Giant versus. Let me put my peepers here on for a second. Roadblock.
Yep.
We love Roadblock. For like a minute. This match like a minute. Tell me, Joseph. Tell me about this minute match.
I thought you were saying we loved Roadblock for a minute because I was about to pull way back from that. Go, never liked Roadblock.
We loved we love Roadblock for like a minute and a half that he's in this match. We love it.
Giant wins, and then he cuts a promo saying that what doesn't kill him pisses him off more. He wants a rematch tonight against Hogan for the title. I gave this a D. It's a very meh minute and a half and then meh promo.
Yeah, I mean, Giant was wrestling for the title last night. I would tell people to listen to the Patreon, but this was Hogan versus Giant. You know what happened.
Yeah.
Hogan won. He said, given the title to Giant, don't work for me, brother. And he won. So Giant's pissed. He lost. He wants another shot, and he wants it tonight. We'll see if Hulk Hogan accepts, though. I doubt it. Anyways, why would he? Anyways, next up, we got Jeff Jarrett versus Eddie Guerrero, and this is for the now reclaimed WCW United States Championship because Eddie got the title back. Tell me.
They do a spot I love where Jarrett hits a monkey flip on Eddie, but Eddie completes the rotation and just lands on his feet. A lot of people have done this. A lot of people have done it since. I just like it every single time. Whenever I see it, it always reminds me of like Rob Van Dam versus Eddie Guerrero because they would do it a lot to each other. A lot of fun stuff. This is a fantastic match that actually ends with Mongo going out with Deborah. No shit. That's never happened before. Deborah wants Mongo to help Jarrett, but instead of hitting Eddie, he intentionally hits Jarrett with the Halliburton. This is not an accident at all. Jarrett does technically win via DQ, but gets no title change because of disqualification. Deborah is so upset and Mongo doesn't care. Meanwhile, Zbyszko says that's why you keep him in the kitchen. Oof. I did enjoy this segment. It gets a B for me. Zbyszko, I think, was being more cheeky than like Jerry. I just think the way he said it was a little bit aggressive. I was like, okay. But this is a fun segment, all things considered. I also like that Mongo is just like, nah, we're not doing this anymore.
Yeah, I think Larry's just a man of a certain age.
Yes.
Where Jerry's just more kind of a nasty piece of work. So I don't think Larry meant anything by it, even though by today's standards, it doesn't hold up real well. After that, though, remember how earlier where I said they weren't allowed to show us any footage from Sold Out? Well,
correct.
Yeah, we go back to the announce table and they say, some people have been pulling strings. We don't know who these people are, but there are some people who have been pulling strings, and they're allowing us to show you the Rowdy Roddy Piper defeating Hulk Hogan at Starrcade. They're allowing us to show the tape. And boy, do we get it. We get the tape. But right before Hogan is about to drop, it cuts out. We get static. We get it all messed up. I actually kind of like this. We get word. So Tony and Larry don't know what's going on. We get word that Eric Bischoff has gone to the video truck and he's ripped the tape out mid-airing. And then Eric comes out, tape in hand, and says, they ever pull a stunt like that again, they're fired. And then he snaps the tape in half. I kind of liked it. What'd you think of this?
I mean, you pull out a VHS mid-play, that shit is going to fucking get destroyed anyway. So whether he snapped it or not didn't matter.
But did you like it?
Yeah, I did. It was fun.
Good. I want to make sure I'm not crazy, because I was like, that was actually kind of good.
Yeah, no, it works.
Yeah, Eric, again, we agree he shouldn't be the leader of the NWO, but he's being a good heel tonight. He's doing some fun stuff. After that, we got my boy Ultimo Dragon versus, hold on, let me put my peepers on again. Billy Pearl.
Yeah.
Billy Pearl. Tell me about Ultimo Dragon versus Billy Pearl, match of the century.
Love us some Billy Pearl. Big Billy Pearl fans. Who? Pearl gets way more offense than I expected, but Dragon obviously wins. I mean, he was going to. I gave this a C because he does let Billy Pearl do a lot. So I was impressed with that. Also, Ultimo Dragon, not really an ego guy, to my knowledge at least. So yeah, I'm not surprised he did that. But yeah, it's nothing to write home about. It's just a simple TV match.
So as you know, as I do, I look at these jobbers to see if we know them better as someone else. And so I went on the Pro Wrestling Wiki and I looked up Billy Pearl. His real name is Brian Walsh, and that's it. That's all the information they got. I mean, they have his card, like his height and his weight and all that, but any other information about him, don't know anything. Absolutely nothing. So this dude is a jobber. After that, we go to Mean Gene. He's with the Four Horsemen, because we're going to do this every week where they're going to argue about stuff.
Yep.
And I'm kind of over it. What'd you think, man?
I genuinely do not look forward to seeing, sadly, Ric Flair on my TV at this point, because I know it's all connected to Four Horsemen drama, and I just don't enjoy any of it. Gene mentions the Four Horsemen coming back together, which apparently last week they had like a State of the Union or whatever, and they got together. Flair says he can't blame Benoit for his decision in love, and says woman finally made the right choice in a man. Anyways, he tells Deborah and Mongo that they need to coexist and get along. Arn says he knows in Tennessee that they don't speak or understand English well, but Mongo delivered a clear message to Jarrett, which is easily the line of the night. That's fantastic. He applauds Benoit for finally putting down Sullivan. Then Mongo and Deborah say some random shit. I just couldn't be bothered to write it down this time. Then Benoit says it's time to let go Sullivan. He then rambles and says tonight he will make another point, and says he wants no one backing him tonight. I gave this whole segment a D. Other than Arn, I really didn't enjoy it.
Yeah, and Benoit tells Kevin Sullivan to drop it. It's over. He's been beaten mentally, physically, and spiritually. And maybe that'll be the end.
Which, to be fair, Benoit, real spiritual guy, even till the end.
You know? I mean, you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Oh, God. That might be the worst
However-
joke I've ever made on the pod.
God, we're going to keep going. We're going to keep going because we got another fantastic match that we want to talk about instead of that. And it's Lex Luger versus, hold on, let me put on my peepers. Ron Powers, who also has nothing on his pro wrestling wiki except is an American professional wrestler. So tell me about Lex Luger versus the American professional wrestler Ron Powers.
Luger wins via torture rack very quickly. It's a very quick match. Then Gene interviews Lex and says that Lex stands up for WCW, but now so is the Giant. Lex says the NWO has a big problem with the Giant. He's experienced it firsthand, and it's nice to finally be on the same side. He says he is all ears and ready to work with him. I actually thought the promo was fine. I gave the whole segment a D because the match is useless, but the promo is like, okay, I kind of get what Lex is doing here. It's not amazing, but it's fine.
Yeah, and Giant is now Team WCW, I guess, because he wasn't before last night when he wrestled. I don't know. See, that's the thing. We talked about this on the pay-per-view. I don't know where Giant stands. So I guess he's WCW now and he wasn't before. All right, whatever. We go to hour number 2. We get a recap of hour number 1 where we show Randy Anderson getting fired and the Steiners getting stripped of the titles. Bobby says that Eric is drunk on power and we need to get the Macho Man Randy Savage back into the WCW. And if you listen to the Patreon, we could not agree more.
Yeah.
So let's move on to our next match, though, because we got Arn Anderson, hell yeah, and Steve McMichael versus the French Canadians. 4 people I've heard of, though, Joseph. And Joseph, am I to understand that you just blacked this match out of your mind?
By the way, I appreciate you bringing it up because I was going to bring it up anyways and throw myself under the bus. Yeah, I don't have a fucking note on this thing. I kind of vaguely remember them wrestling, but I did not write a single thing down.
Yeah, he goes, bro, we got to pause. And so I think bro's got a mud pie that he's working on. He just needs to go. And then he tells me, I don't remember this match at all. And so this dude is so over the Horseman drama that he blacked out this match in
Absolutely.
his mind.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You don't really need to say much because it's kind of become the standard Horseman match where they win with the Halliburton. So they win. I mean, that's really it. It's not, I got nothing more to say, really. It's just they win with the Halliburton. That seems to be what they're doing now. It just everyone gets hit with the Halliburton and the Horsemen win. The end. I mean, that's really it. I mean, during they talk about Randy Anderson again and kind of those things and the Steiner brothers and all that, but that's it. And plus, we got to get through this because we got more important things to talk about than that match.
Like what, Scott?
We got Lee Marshall. 1-800-COLLECT Road Report from Memphis, Tennessee. And it's exciting because he's apparently the place is just bursting at the seams, ready for Nitro to return to the Mid-South Coliseum. Place is going wild.
He says that it hasn't been this much commotion in Memphis since Sun Records sold Elvis to RCA. Lee Marshall got them deep cuts. He's doing a Nitro party at BB King's Blues Club. BB King, big fan of Nitro. He says that Graceland smelled a little funny today, like Hunka Hunka Burnin' Weasel.
Bam!
Gets an A+. Look forward to it every week.
Bobby, not having it. After that, we go to our match. We got the Outsiders, the newly recrowned WCW World Tag Team Champions, versus the Extreme. Let me put on my peepers. Ace.
One does become someone.
Ace Darling. It's not that one.
Nope.
And Devin Storm.
Yep, it's that one.
Probably better known as Crowbar.
Correct.
Probably, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
So there you go. And these are this is for the WCW World Tag Team Championship. So I'm sure the Extreme has a real chance here.
We have actually seen Devin Storm one time. You had pretty much the same reaction. Crowbar is Devin Storm when he gets on steroids. So that's fun. This match, look, this match isn't a real match. It's a jobber match, but that's kind of the point of this match. The Outsiders the entire time pretend they're really struggling and they're having to have a hard hitting match to win this one. And then they obviously just fucking smoke these fools. And that kind of adds to their coolness. So I'm giving this a B because the outsiders make it work so well. But normally I would give this a C because it is a jobber match.
I mean, you're giving it a BB King because Lee Marshall at the House of Blues. But yeah, it's a jobber match. It is what it is. And then really, I mean, from there, we kind of really just go into our next match. I don't think, there's nothing in between. We got Kevin Sullivan, and I don't have to put my peepers on for this one because we got Joe Gomez. We like us some Joe Gomez. Oh, Joe. 40 seconds? Tell me, Joseph.
There's nothing to talk about. Joe Gomez always gets done dirt. Taskmaster wins immediately. I gave it an F. I hated this.
Yeah. Again, we like Joe Gomez. It's just poor Joe every damn time. Man needs his day. If we were booking Joe, if you listen to the pod, just know if we had been booking you, you would have had your moment in the sun, my friend.
Yeah, we'd at least put you in like the TV title range, see if you could do anything with it.
You would win a match or two if we were in charge. I mean, that's all you can really ask for, right? After that, though, we got an NWO moment. We hear the music. And Joseph, why don't you tell me about all of this?
Bischoff says it's unbelievable to be associated with Hollywood Hulk Hogan. Hogan says he's going to take some time off because he has no one to challenge him. He says he will beat up the Giant again, so presumably their match is on. Mach and Sting are up in the crowd watching silently. Bischoff and Hogan speculate that they have converted both Sting and Mach to the NWO. Then Hogan does his poses. I gave it a C, mostly because Mach and Sting are cool, but it's not a great promo.
Yeah, I didn't like this. As you said, like, I guess they're wrestling again. But, like, no one's told us that like, he's actually accepted the match. I think it would have been fun if Hogan did the, like, no, I beat you. That don't work for me, brother. And then, like, they get a call from these mysterious people pulling the strings that we've been hearing about. And they say, no, in fact, you are wrestling tonight. Yeah. Like, that would have been fun because we start doing that. And this would have been a fine place to start that. Well, I mean, we've already kind of started it. So just do that. There is actually someone above Eric. And they're taking an interest in what's going on now. And it's Gorilla Monsoon. Wouldn't that be fun? Anyways, after that, we got Dean Malenko and Jerry Flynn. Now this is gonna be a match.
Absolutely.
For the WCW World Cruiserweight Championship. Both these guys pretty good, right, Joseph? This is gonna be a good match. Tell me.
Well, it's Jerry Flynn and not Jerry Lynn, so Malenko was never gonna lose this. But Flynn did get a little bit of offense in, much like Dragon let whoever the fuck he went against. I already forgot. I'm not scrolling up to find out who that was. Malenko wins with the Texas Cloverleaf. I gave it a C. It's a jobber match. All these become jobber matches, like hour number 2. It's insane.
I can't believe that Mr. JF lost. We like him, right? No, it's not the same. It's not the same person. It's hold on, let me put on my papers. He's got there's some information about him on the on he's got quite a bit of story here, although we have no idea who he is. He's known as having a mullet. So there you go. That's Jerry Flynn. All right. After that, I guess we do have something in between, right? We've got okay. Because kind of what happens at some point in Nitro is that we stop having stories and we just keep rolling from match to match to match. And so in my head, I was like, oh, there's nothing after this. There's nothing more. But there is something. We come back from commercial and we go over to Tony and we're talking about the main event, talking about Giant and Hulk Hogan because apparently they're wrestling. Apparently that's been decided. I don't know by who. But we're now also told that there's an executive committee, which I think we've talked about before.
Yes.
But the executive committee has made a decision. And they've decided that Hollywood Hulk Hogan, will defend the title against Rowdy Roddy Piper at Super Brawl. Crowd goes nuts. We get a Piper chant. Very exciting. I don't think it's a great booking decision because I don't know why we're doing this, but maybe Rowdy will win it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Maybe.
that'll happen.
Yeah. So what'd you think of this?
I gave it a C. It's fine. It is confusing though, because like the whole storyline is against the Giant right now, and they're like, oh, but Piper. Okay.
Yeah, we haven't seen him since Starrcade. Like, we haven't talked anything about him. And then suddenly it's like, oh, hey, remember when he beat him? Or we got the tape. Remember that? Because we're gonna announce that he's wrestling him again at Super Brawl. And it's like, it's a weird story angle. It would have been better if Piper had won.
It's almost like Gladiator 2 when they're like, did you remember the first one?
It's exactly like that.
Did you remember that?
Joseph is making fun of me because I watched Gladiator 2 last night and I did not care for it.
To be fair, part of the reason that I needed you to watch that is so we could laugh later on when a certain person tells us how much they loved it.
Allegedly. Hopefully he doesn't listen to the pod. As you know, I have not said anything about it in the chat because I don't want him to know how I feel about it until I hear how he feels about it. Anyways, we got Hugh Morris versus Chris Benoit. 3 minutes. Tell me about it.
Benoit is attacked by Kevin Sullivan while the refs are distracted by a woman being approached by Jacqueline, who is Sullivan's new squeeze. Morris hits the moonsault for the win. Then Gene interviews Sullivan and asks who this woman is, and Sullivan says it's none of his business. Jimmy Hart isn't happy about this and says this is another set of trouble, bringing in another woman in. And then Jacqueline says she will never do to Sullivan what woman did. By the way, real quickly, they're intentionally avoiding talking about her name. We just know it's Jackie. She's a very, very famous women's wrestler, deservedly so.
Has a good run in WWF.
Right. So we know this. We have hindsight, but they are intentionally avoiding talking about her name. That'll be important next week when they definitely keep that trend. Anyways, this goes completely off the rails, and I think this is just a bad episode of Nitro. It gets an F.
It's not great. And this is Jacqueline's debut, right? I don't remember her being on before.
Yes.
At least on WCW.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At the very least in the Nitro run. Before that, I don't know.
She's Kevin Sullivan's new squeeze. Jimmy Hart, who doesn't like the dames. We've kind of established that. Doesn't like this just another woman. Like, haven't you learned, Kevin? And yeah, so I don't care for it. After that, though, we got the Giant versus Hollywood Hogan for the WCW World Heavyweight Championship. Surely the Giant will win the title this time, Joseph, right?
Yup. Giant has no music, which is not a nod to the previous Sold Out. It's actually more of a nod because Giant has lately had the Dungeon of Doom music, even though he's been out of the Dungeon of Doom, even with NWO. So they don't really know what to do with him. So right now he's got no music. He beats up on Hogan. Then Vincent tries to interfere, but he gets annihilated. Then Bischoff interferes, and Giant is about to choke slam him when the Outsiders interfere and beat him up. Luger comes to the aid of the Giant, and we close the show with them standing together. If I recall correctly, I do enjoy this pairing. Like, I think they'll have kind of a fun run, but this is a weekend with them not really fighting a whole lot, and just kind of the show just ends. And it's like, oh, okay, so I gave this a C.
Not great. Hopefully Raw will be better. It won't. It's not a good card. Let's talk about it. January 27th, 1997, Beaumont, Texas. And are we live yet?
No.
I don't remember. No. Then we're not live. We are taped with WWF Monday Night Raw. We see highlights of Savio Vega and Ahmed Johnson. They're feuding now because that happened at a house show at Madison Square Garden. And then Sid Vicious crushes ass with a steel chair on Shotgun Saturday Night. And that leads us to our first match, which is Crush versus Ahmed Johnson. Ahmed Johnson's going to win this, right? Because Crush sucks. Right?
Absolutely. My first note going back to the whole Shotgun Saturday Night stuff is Savio Vega joined the Nation on Saturday because, of course, that's when that would happen.
Yep.
This is a predictably boring match between the ropes. Ultimately, Farouk interferes and throws Ahmed Johnson into the steps. Crush hits the heart punch and picks up the win. This has a storyline, so I won't give it a horrible grade. I just hate the story. It's a C- for me.
Yeah, it's not good. We don't like Crush. It's ugh. Anyways, I got nothing more to say. Vince takes us to the ring with the new WWF World Champion, the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels. And I'm not going to say anything more, Joseph, because I know this is your boy. So why don't you tell me what happens?
Vin Man says last year at WrestleMania, the boyhood dream came true. This year at the Rumble, it lived on. Honestly, a good line from Vin Man. I like that. However, on February 13th, Thursday, Raw Thursday, which they always say that, Thursday, Raw Thursday. Don't know why. It fucking sounds stupid, but whatever. The rematch has been ordered. HBK versus Psycho Sid, which I've liked their last few showings, so I'm okay with that. HBK says, let's get one thing straight about his dream. It isn't a dream, it's a reality. Everyone knows Sid and HBK have a strange relationship, but Sid gave me a shot. And on Thursday, Raw Thursday, I'm giving you a shot. But as everyone knows, I got to hold this by hook or by crook. Vin Man asks about if he wins, who will be the next opponent. Shawn says that everyone brings up attitudes. He himself runs hot and cold. No way, not 1997 Shawn.
Never.
He wakes up in good moods. He wakes up in bad moods. But we got Bret Hart, who isn't happy with me. We got Steve Austin, who isn't happy with anybody. We got The Undertaker, who, if you bring out the monster in him, it's the scariest thing alive. And we've got the man they called Vader. Tons of fun and tons of a wrecking machine. The question is it all about this? And he holds up the title. Yes, it is. This right here brings out either the very best in all of us or the very worst. Lately, it's been bringing out the worst in us. But being bad is what's going to make me great, and being bad is what I'll be, and being bad is where I'm at. And being the World Wrestling Federation champion is where I want to stay. Vince then brings out Bret Hart, and I will say it starts to get interesting here. Bret says whatever HBK needs to do to walk out as champ, do it, because HBK is the one he wants to beat. He wants Shawn at 100%. No excuses, no injuries, which is a very not so subtle dig. Vince says he is overlooking Sid, who Bret says he won't discredit, but he will be watching Shawn's back so he can face him, and has no doubts that Bret will win his own match, which is that four-way dance that we talked about last week. Vince then brings in The Undertaker. Taker then says that Hart has his respect, but he's sick and tired of Hart saying he was screwed when he brings up how he was in fact screwed. He then says, then he brings up how he, being The Undertaker, was in fact true, which is true. Undertaker did get screwed out of his title. Then Austin comes out. Austin doesn't enter the ring. He says he may be the toughest son of a bitch in the WWF, but he recognizes an ambush when he sees it, which is just a great line from Austin. From where I stand right now, I see 3 crybabies and Little Boy Blue. You all sit there and piss and moan about everything you want. At the final 4, I'll wait for my opportunity then. No disqualification is right down my alley. I threw both of your asses to Taker and Bret Hart over the top rope. Shawn Michaels, you know, son, if you'd been in there, I'd have done the exact same to you. Come February 16th, that's when I'll get mine. Vader is behind Austin, and as Austin turns, he realizes this, and he says, on second thought, I'll whip your asses right now. Then he pretends to charge, but then ends up walking away. I didn't love this, and even Austin couldn't save it. Austin's quite good in it. Shawn is a little bit too babyface for me. And then Bret Hart, they keep doing this thing where Bret Hart keeps coming out, and like him and Shawn start getting into it, and we're like, oh yeah, here we go. And then they add people, and you go, no, that was the storyline. It was right there. Let them do their thing. I'm giving it a C. It wasn't horrible. It's sadly maybe the best thing on the night.
Oof. Oof. I agree though. Let Bret and Shawn take not so subtle jabs at one another. We like it. It's fun.
Yeah,
I agree that I do think the best part of it was probably Austin, but even then it still wasn't. I liked when he turned and saw Vader and was like, you know what? I'll go the other way. But yeah, it wasn't great. It wasn't great. Speaking of not great, we got the British Bulldog versus Doug Furness. 7 minutes.
Apparently, Ahmed Johnson is searching for the nation with a
Yeah.
2x4 backstage. Bulldog throws the steel steps on Doug Furnace, and the ref just lets it happen. No disqualification, which I was like, that's wild. That's a disqualification. But the ref's like, nah, I'm okay. Apparently, Nick Patrick is reffing over here. Backstage, Ahmed Johnson breaks down the door to the nation's locker room, but no one is there. The match itself is fine. Owen accidentally hits Bulldog with a slammy, but Bulldog still manages to win, and this leads to tension where Bulldog is pissed. Clarence Mason gets involved because for some reason he's their manager, and Bulldog has to be calmed down. Owen shakes Bulldog's hand, and then they just kind of leave that way. I gave it a C. Owen and Bulldog are really kind of aimless right now, and luckily in a few weeks they'll really have a point again, which is great, but we're just kind of not there yet.
Yeah, it's just a filler match. I was surprised that Bulldog still pulled out the win after the slamming because I thought, oh, maybe this is how they break Owen and Bulldog up, but then it kind of just gets blown off, right? They're arguing. Clarence Mason says, let's come together, and then they hug it out. It's beautiful. Beautiful. After that, though, because apparently on WWF Raw, the new thing is just to storytell on the other programs and then show you the story that happened on other programs, we go again to the footage of this Madison Square Garden house show where Vega turns on Ahmed, and then we go to the clip of Shotgun Saturday Night where Vega attacks Rocky Maivia, and that's he's now joined the nation. It's official, right? That's the story. And then we go back to Raw where we just have a match.
Yep.
It's crazy. And this is our main event. The Godwins versus Vader and Mankind. Tell me.
What a main event. This is a boring match that sees Mankind accidentally hit Vader over the head with a chair, and he's seemingly fine with it. He doesn't really mind. Man, Mick Foley just can't let the ear go. Godwin somehow win via disqualification, which makes no sense because Mankind hit his own partner, so they should have won via disqualification, but whatever. It got a D. It's not good. Also, not a main event.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's the last match, but it's not the end of the night because Ahmed, who's been searching for the nation all night, finally catches up with them. He's got his 2x4. He's swinging it. One of the PG-13 members falls into the trunk, and then they speed away.
Yep.
And that's
what a payoff. What a payoff.
I kind of laughed at the trunk bit, but other than that, not a whole lot there, and not a whole lot to the night, which brings me to who won, because neither of the shows were particularly great tonight, but I feel like we got to give it to WCW just because there was more going on than Raw, right?
I'm so disappointed because I loved last week's Raw. I was really actually hyped to watch this one, and it was such a letdown. And I was like, come on, just string some good episodes together. I gave this whole show a D. I gave the Nitro a C, so by proxy it wins. It has to win.
Yeah, I mean, Nitro, again, like I said, neither of them are great, but there's just more. I think because they have the benefit of the second hour, there's just more going on. There is some storytelling with them not letting them show anything negative about the NWO, and then some mysterious people pulling the strings in the background, which apparently turns out to be the executive committee, books a match and kind of all that kind of stuff. And it's starting to show that the NWO doesn't have total control, which is kind of what we've been asking for, right? We were talking about how the NWO just seems like this unstoppable behemoth, and it's kind of getting boring, right? Because there's just really no one in their way. And so now this executive committee's kind of come up to challenge Eric, and that's interesting. So I'm excited to see where that goes, even if the night itself wasn't particularly interesting. So it's got to be Nitro, because there's nothing on Raw tonight, nothing. And I think that does it, man.
I know, this is such a sad episode.
Yeah,
I really wish we could keep going, but it's like both were so bad, and we just can't. There's no way to string this out.
Yeah, I mean, we try to give you guys a full hour of hard-hitting content, but we're also, on the pay-per-view last that we just recorded, Joseph messaged me in the chat and says, "You're dragging it, man. I was going too long." So we don't want to just drag it out for the sake of dragging it out, right? So I mean, we've done all we can do, and we can't do any more.
Real quickly, this might have been the worst week of wrestling we've watched.
of both sides.
Yeah, where it's like neither one was their worst show, but collectively it was not good.
There was nothing where, because even when one or the other has a bad night, there's usually some glimmer, right? Like, well,
Right.
This was really fun though, or this really advanced a good storyline, or what happens next? This starts something that turns into greatness or whatever. We get a lot of those, and tonight there's just nothing. There's nothing. There's nothing you can point to and say, but that's important, or that's good, or that leads to something important. It's just both episodes just filler this week.
That's a good way of describing them. Just filler episodes.
No killer, all filler. That was a Sum 41 album, except it was reversed. All killer, no filler. I'm an old man. I remember Sum 41. But yeah, not good. So since we're done and we don't do filler here, here's a bunch of stills from previous episodes.
On our we should just have it where it just keeps running on our completely audio podcast, and we're apparently showing stills, but it's just silence for like 15 minutes.
Here's the clip show, some of our favorite clips from the last year. Well, anyways, that does it for us. Thank you for listening. Hopefully next week will be better and we have more to talk about. On behalf of the Monday Night Wars, thank you so much for listening. I'm Scott. With me as always is Joseph. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye, guys. Hey, everybody, it's Joseph. And guess what? Not only can you listen to us every Monday on Spotify, but you can find us on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and YouTube Podcasts as well. Just search for Monday Night Wars Podcast. If you want to reach out to us, you can find us on Twitter at MON Night Wars Pod, on Instagram at Monday Night Wars Podcast, or just email us at mnwpodcast@gmail.com. And finally, subscribe to our Patreon at Monday Night Wars Podcast. For $2 a month, you get every pay-per-view from WCW and WWF during this era, as well as additional content later on. Once again, thank you for listening. We'll see you here next time on the Monday Night Wars Podcast.